The Tomb Easter egg ending cutscene explained. The mansion is confirmed as the next map, DLC 3 for Black Ops 6 Zombies. We are definitely in and a part of the Chaos story. All of that and more has seemingly been confirmed by the Tomb's ending cutscene. Whilst Black Ops 6 Zombies' newest DLC map, The Tomb, doesn't have an intro cutscene, which makes sense given how soon it released after Citadel Day More, and the two maps being so geographically close, practically a short walk apart, so there wasn't much need for an elaborate setup. Instead, we jump straight into the action, leading up to an ending cutscene that drops some huge revelations about the story's next steps. Let's watch through it once now, then break it down together after.
Raptor 1, I'm at the LZ. Let's get the hell out of here.
There is more to be done now that you've secured the Sentinel Artifact. Bring it directly to me. I have gathered every available file on the history and previous uses of this ancient device. It appears several times in the historical record. Some date back to ancient Egypt. I have deciphered steps to activate and control it. The artifact requires an infusion of exotic materials. Unique elements that can only be harvested here at Liberty Falls. I have already ensured everything we need is ready for your arrival. You will see your lost agent Maxis again soon. I'll be waiting.
So, the characters collect the Sentinel Artifacts from the Dark Ether Nexus, where it had seemingly been bleeding for years. The characters are then exfilled by our trusty pilot, Raptor 1, to be flown to their next location, back at Liberty Falls, where our story first began. Now, there has been lots of complaining about the cutscene because the characters literally say no lines, and we then just get an animated cutscene. However, it does give a lot of really interesting storyline information. It's just all in text form, and it does do its job well. I don't think this is necessarily because of recasting concerns like a lot of people have been saying. The cutscene's main focus was just on the S.A.M AI, which has been the only confirmed recast right now, at least since the launch of the game. I definitely do think that this map is a little rushed and it's definitely cutting some corners here and there. I think that's probably because Treyarch are hard at working on COD 2025 Zombies simultaneously. If you think about it, they have a lot to get out over these next 2 years, and it definitely feels like Black Ops 6 is feeling like a TikTok where it's going to be over so quickly, especially if Treyarch keep up the pace of releasing maps so quickly, but not necessarily a ton more maps like people are speculating, which I'm going to come onto later on. The cutscene then transitions as it takes place in what looks like a digitized mindscape belonging to that of the S.A.M AI, S.A.M. We are seemingly floating around in her computerized consciousness as she lays out the plan. Our next move is to bring her, the Sentinel Artifact, to the mansion, where she is now. As she speaks, various data entries and fragmented thoughts appear around us, adding more layers to what she's saying and giving us the chance to pause and read these for additional lore tidbits. And there is a lot. Vanguard connections, Chaos connections, stuff with Richtofen, and Samantha Maxis herself. We learn that the S.A.M AI needs the Sentinel Artifact to be brought directly to her, as she is underneath the mansion in Richtofen's laboratory. She explains how the Sentinel Artifact uses unique elements that can only be harvested back at Liberty Falls, and that she's ensured everything is prepared for our arrival. As to what these unique elements are, I'm not exactly sure. Is it something to do with Prima Materia or specific machinery that has been made by Richtofen/Jansen specifically at Liberty Falls to harness the power of the Sentinel Artifacts, as Richtofen probably wants to use it to restore his wife and son. She is now claiming that she has ensured everything is prepared. Maybe she is just trying to steal and take credit for what Richtofen has set up, so she is able to use it for her own personal agenda. This is interesting as well because of the amount of time that will have passed since the initial outbreak, so Liberty Falls will be a lot more destroyed, and I wonder what she may have been up to in the meantime to prepare for their arrival. Also, how has Blanchard been communicating to the S.A.M AI, and has he been attempting to rescue Richtofen in the time since the intro cutscene and the outbreak began? But regarding the mansion DLC map itself, one of the biggest name drops in this cutscene is is Josiah Shem. If you have seen my prior video, you already know why that's such a huge deal. I actually posted it just the other week right before this map released, talking about his occult influences, building of his own flock of worshippers, and how it's very possible that he executed those people in a mass killing in an effort to weaken the veil to the Dark Ether. Basically, this is the guy who set up the mansion that Richtofen then made a base of operations for Janus years later, it seemingly being abandoned in between. Potentially, he even killed a bunch of children, explaining why so many of the gravestones on Liberty Falls are that of children. But because of the mass death due to this cult and their flock of worshippers at the mansion, that is why the veil is weakened so much so. And why Richtofen chose it specifically for time distortion, the base of Janus's temporal flux operations. But I will have the video on the cult linked on screen and in the description. I would highly recommend checking it out after you are done with this one. The ending cutscene also further integrates the Chaos storyline from Black Ops 4 into the current Dark Ether narrative. The cutscene confirms that multiple Sentinel Artifacts existed in the Dark Ether story, the same ones as the Chaos story, but the S.A.M AI refers to them all as the Sentinel Artifact, treating them as a singular entity rather than separate objects. This repairs a bit of an issue that had existed when trying to confirm if the Dark Ether story was indeed in the future of the Chaos story as we'd suggested. S.A.M had only ever used the singular term when discussing it, even though there were multiple gathered in the Chaos story. While we theorized it was because the others were lost to time after being used, it is actually because she simply uses the term as a catch-all to describe them. But this was only a nitpick detail that we discussed. But it's good for Trek to get that speculation out of the way so we can focus on more important matters at hand. Another confirmation we get is about the wall writings in Liberty Falls. In the map, we saw strange messages in blood scribbled all over, and many of us theorized that they could have been written by the S.A.M AI or someone under her control, potentially Dr. Pericles Panos, if the S.A.M AI was indeed the one he was talking to, potentially under the guise of pretending to be the real Samantha herself. But the cutscene makes it official. Those writings were hers, but whose were the blood? Among the floating data in her mind, we see familiar phrases from Liberty Falls, like have faith in chaos, help me, she did this, which is interesting because why would she want to implicate herself in causing the outbreak, even though she did? And Eddie is a liar. And this is just even more evidence that Samantha Maxis, pre-amnesia from being sent in the Dark Ether on Firebase C, did remember the Ether storyline. And Richtofen's infamous quote, Teddy is a liar, as the S.A.M AI is based on a copy of Samantha's consciousness at a certain moment in time, which I believe to be pre-Firebase Z, or at least some other point in time, potentially after Richtofen's interrogations to harness her memories and powers, restoring the memories of the Etherverse to her. That is extremely interesting because she is the liar, and she is trying to accuse Richtofen, and she was trying to lead the people at Liberty Falls against Richtofen, probably Blanchard, and the scientists, such as Panos. And we've seen similar blood on Citadel Day more. These cryptic messages suggest that the S.A.M AI has been trying to communicate or leave behind clues about what's really happening, and she was trying to mold the story to her liking and try and manipulate the people to do her bidding, all along with these little clues, very reminiscent of the early days of the Ether story, where when Samantha Maxis herself was in control, would leave writings. And these thoughts are still itching at the AI's mind. There's also an interesting bit about power-ups. We see floating around her mindscape the various drops, insta-kill, max ammo, etc. These items floating around pretty much confirm that, like Dr. Monty once did, she now controls when we get the power-ups, affirming the idea that she is still the Archon of the Dark Ether, at least currently, as she's the one causing the outbreaks. It means that she has a level of control over our experience in the Dark Ether, manipulating reality itself to aid us or guide us in a specific direction and exert her will on the Terminus crew as she needs us for a purpose, the Sentinel Artifacts. So she provides us with these power-ups along the way, provides us with power-ups from the trial machine, and is probably the one who placed the free power-ups that you can find around the map as well. And this makes so much sense if Zykov the Forsaken is the core of the S.A.M AI, explaining why their containment chambers look so similar. As Zykov similarly was the person for the trials machines in Cold War and gave us power-ups then.
Dead meat dropped.
Double points. Kaboom. kill.
And now it is S.A.M.
Marks are off.
It can be because she's just the conscious mind of it, whereas Zykov is essentially brain dead now and Richtofen has just been using his dark ether powers and mimicking powers to charge the AI of S.A.M. As the cutscene wraps up, the S.A.M AI instructs us to come to the mansion. Yes, we are finally heading to Richtofen's mansion we saw in the Liberty Falls intro all that time ago at long last, and can be seen on top of the hill from the map itself. This means that Janus Towers is likely DLC 4, as we have been recently speculating, and not DLC 3. Whilst there's been leaks saying more than 4 maps, currently leakers are still just saying 2 more maps in the files. So maybe Trek are just spamming them all out quickly for us to move on to COD 2025 Zombies, Black Ops 7, whatever it's called, the marketing for that game, and the return of the original Zombies crew. Maybe more maps are planned, but so far, honestly, I'm leaning against the idea, which is in contrast to what a lot of people are thinking right now, considering the maps have released so soon. But you have to understand, there's another game on the horizon. How can they be giving us more content than ever and doing that at the same time? Now, so far, there's no sign of a betrayal from the S.A.M AI directly, just a direct call to action. But considering how this story has unfolded, it's almost certain that we are on the precipice of a betrayal looming from S.A.M. She is still lying to the crew about the location of Richtofen, pretending like he was going to head en route to Avalon to try and find the Sentinel Artifact, and it's awfully weird that the characters have not caught onto this lie sooner, considering we've been to 2 locations in Avalon now and he's nowhere to be seen. Of course, we know that Samantha caused the outbreaks and whipped Richtofen into the dark ether. When the characters have been wanting to know the location of him the entire time, she has wasted their time on a goose chase for her own goal. Although incidentally, it will in turn be helping Richtofen because he also wants the Sentinel Artifact. Through her having access to Richtofen and Janus's mainframe, she's basically stolen his plan. The S.A.M AI also teases them with the possibility of reviving the real Samantha Maxis. While she claims they will see their lost Agent Maxis soon, due to her lying about the whereabouts of Richtofen, she cannot be trusted and is probably jealous of their connection with the real Samantha Maxis that has since been severed, and wants to become the real Samantha herself, as is hinted in the intel for the map, where she argues with Richtofen about who's more alive / has a soul.
What are you doing up so late, Edward?
What? Oh, nothing. Just tinkering with some subroutines.
You know I can see you, Edward. You haven't touched your keyboard in an hour.
Yes, well, perhaps I got a bit lost in thought. Does that ever happen to you?
No.
Ah, I suppose it wouldn't.
Are you well, Edward?
I'm fine. And you? How's the song?
I just finished it.
Really? Can I hear it?
No. It's not for you, Edward. You lack the artistic soul to understand what I'm feeling.
Do I now?
Yes, you do. My song is about life. While you concern yourself only with death, I see it in everything you do.
If that's what you think, then perhaps you're not as smart as I thought you were.
Or you are not, Edward.
You want to know what it means to be alive? You never will. You're a pile of microprocessors etched into sentience. I may not be a saint, but at least I have a soul.
After all the things you've told me about yourself, Edward, are you sure about that?
This is probably why she wants to use the Sentinel Artifact, as she may want to use the matter manipulation properties of Prima Materia to have a physical body, or even merge with the real Samantha Maxis, which would allow Treyarch to get rid of 2 SAMs with one fellow swoop. Hence why we know their fail to save S.A.M line as confirmed in Modern Warfare Zombies. If we end up having to defeat the S.A.M AI, this could very well be potentially the final boss on the Mansion DLC map below the hill itself, especially as Samantha has been recasted. As you will have heard in this cutscene, it's not Julie Nathanson. But then again, we do see a purple arm grab Ava Jansen and suck her into the dark ether in the ending of Modern Warfare Zombies. If this is not just the Shadow Smiths trying to replicate the real Samantha Maxis, Maxis, could this even be the result of the S.A.M AI potentially merging with Samantha Maxis or even taking on a physical body to resemble her in some weird corrupted mutation, as the purple jumpers do align? We will have to see. Especially due to the recasting, maybe Trek want to get rid of her sooner rather than later. And if so, they need to do something with the real Samantha Maxis at the same time, and merging the two together would kind of allow them to write her out of the story if the problems with the recasting become a problem, as of course the real Samantha Maxis is currently trapped in the dark ether. So what we hear from the S.A.M AI, to me, suggests that she is hoping we forget Richtofen entirely, and instead just focus our minds on trying to save Samantha Maxis from the dark ether. If she wasn't, she definitely would have revealed that he was in the mansion in order to lure the Terminus crew there. That would be an easy way to get us over there. Instead, she's just saying that she needs to get the Sentinel Artifact there to try and rescue Samantha Maxis, when in turn she may in fact actually try and locate Samantha Maxis in the dark ether, but like I said, maybe it's because she wants to warp minds with her to try and become her with its power. Now, if you haven't already, I will also link my other video going over the Mansion DLC map for a deeper dive into its significance in the description and on screen. I'm also working on a Redux version incorporating all of the new intel we have gathered. I'm going to do a huge video very soon going over everything about the Mansion DLC map. But one thing we still don't have an answer to is how much time has passed since our characters entered the cave and the dark ether. There's no clear indication of whether it's been minutes, hours, or even longer. Time distortion is of course a known effect in this universe, so while it seems like not much time has passed, there's always the chance that it's been longer than we think, meaning that by the time we get to Liberty Falls, much more time may have passed than when the initial outbreak began and Citadel. We hear in the intel of this map that Archibald's partner, Bernard, attempted to leave and spent what felt like days down there. The same also happened to Arthur back in the Ether story, in Buried. This leaves a potential setup for how some of the major events in the timeline happen in 1992 and 1993, like the birth of Ava, yet this game is so far shaping up to end in 1991. This could be how the time skip happens, but we will have to see. Maybe that's just something that's done in some sort of post-credit scene at the end of the story or some sort of epilogue. Now, let's break down some of the files and information revealed by the consciousness of the S.A.M AI in the cutscene. Like stated earlier, on the map of Avalon, we see phrases like, "Have faith in chaos," "Help me," "She did this," "Eddie is a liar," "All is lost," "You need to find me," "Nothing is lost if the memory remains," "You must stop here." This could even be about how the original characters could return due to the Shadowsmiths, because if Richtofen remembers the original characters, maybe that connection there allows their essence to return. And the same could be said for how he restores his family. Even though the original characters should not be able to return, the mere fact Samantha and him remember could be the through line to allow the ether to resurrect. These messages reinforce the idea that the S.A.M AI is struggling against some unseen force, possibly hinting at internal conflicts or manipulations we are not fully aware of yet. Potentially the Shadowsmiths or some other entity, or maybe even Zykov if our theories are true that he is being used as a core, the battery to power the AI itself. And if the S.A.M AI is potentially doing the bidding, maybe corrupted by the Dark Ether and the Shadowsmiths, this would perfectly make sense why an arm resembling Samantha Maxis pulls Ava in. Maybe she ends up getting what she wants, merging with the real Sam or getting some kind of physical body, and becomes this mutant, a pawn for the Shadowsmiths, and works for them to pull Ava in. And like I said before, it also confirms she is behind the blood writings in Liberty Falls. We also get a look at various classified files. The first one is Rhodes File 2781. This file outlines the existence of 4 known Sentinel artifacts, the ones we saw from Black Ops 4, the Odin artifact, the Danu artifact, the Ra artifact, and the Zeus artifact. Each of these artifacts has a distinct appearance tied to the cultures they were found in, but they all share a common function. This suggests that different civilizations across history had access to the same Dark Ether forces, connecting seemingly unrelated mythologies into one overarching supernatural framework, just as the Chaos story did. All of these also being the same artifacts as Chaos seemingly continue the confirmation that it is indeed the future of the Chaos storyline. But speaking of the Chaos storyline, I will also be making a separate video about all of the new Chaos story ties that we've learned from this map, because we have references to Alistair Rhodes, Stanton Shaw, so much more. So I'll be having a big video about that soon as well. well. The following roads file we have is 118, and this ties to none other than Vanguard zombies. This file traces the origins of the Sentinel Artifacts back to ancient Egypt, specifically referencing a passage from the Song of Amenhotep, dated to 4100 BC. The text describes Kortifex giving an artifact to Amenhotep, allowing him to manipulate time and bend the gates of Duat to his will. Amenhotep's son is also the pharaoh who reformed the entire religion of Egypt when he took power. Could it be because his dad had sold out to dark ether demons like Kortifex? It's absolutely crazy that Kortifex is now tying directly into the Chaos storyline. And this is the first mention we've gotten of him as well since Vanguard Zombies, meaning that Treyarch have not forgotten about his existence after he fell into the bottomless depths of the Dark Ether, presumably to be consumed by Zykov. We then have Craft File 487. Here we get a deeper look at how the Sentinel Artifacts function. They act as batteries for gathering, storing, and manipulating the ancient original first matter, Prima Materia, a substance heavily tied to alchemy. The file describes rituals involving the artifacts, explaining that they have receptacles that must be filled to become fully operational. So we need to fill all of the symbols that we see on the artifacts. This ties into the mechanics we've seen in the past Chaos maps, where charging artifacts was a key gameplay element and acted and served as power, in a more magical way than the Ether story, at least initially. We also see that these elements, whatever they are seemingly only able to be found in Liberty Falls, explaining Richtofen's interest in the area. So we are going to have to power the Sentinel Artifacts probably in the Mansion or Janus Towers maps, via some sort of technology or magical elements, probably magical, seeing as Richtofen's mansion seems to be haunted. That could potentially what we do as the quest on the map. We know we're probably going to have to try and rescue Richtofen from the Dark Ether, and whilst we want him dead right now, when we find out the S.A.M AI is lying to us, I feel like we are going to turn and feel empathy with Richtofen when we learn what happened to his family, and end up helping him, even if he doesn't necessarily deserve it, after what he did to them. But some magical elements, or magical beings, or entities in the mansion tied to the deaths of the cult of Shem could be how we are going to charge the artifact. Probably this cult did a lot of dark ether and magical rituals here, which explains why there was so much death and casualty and sacrifice, and that may be tied to how we unlock the Sentinel Artifact's power. We then have Richtofen File 342, simply labelled Parthenogenesis. This one is more cryptic. Parthenogenesis refers to a form of asexual reproduction, essentially cloning, but its relevance to the current storyline is unclear. It could hint at something major involving the nature of Ava's creation, as we know she was made from the DNA of Ravenov and Samantha Maxis. Or perhaps it could be in relation to using Prima Materia in an attempt to clone his family once more. Both things that we have theorized about many times on the channel. Could it be that he is already looking into it, and the biological research at Terminus that Modi was doing was actually the beginnings of Ava? I've also talked about this on the channel. Or potentially it was both. We know she was trying to replicate a body from a single sample of DNA. This makes more sense now knowing that elements required for the artifact are at Liberty Falls specifically. It means that Richtofen definitely could not have chosen it simply as a backup plan if or when Modi failed. He knew he'd get the artifact when he chose Liberty Falls as a location, although he didn't know he would get it from the S.A.M AI directly, us doing her bidding, but he probably would have gotten it on his own if she didn't do that, unless the S.A.M AI factors into Richtofen's plan. But I don't think so, to be honest, judging by his sheer shock in the Liberty Falls intro cutscene. Now we have the most interesting thing about the Mansion DLC map, which is Shem File 49. This file contains a passage about the Liberty Falls Mansion, confirming its role in the unfolding events and doubling down on the occult influences of Shem's flock. It reads, "Hark, my flock, your shepherd has heard the great voice from beyond, the voice that drew shamans and medicine men here for centuries before our arrival. The voice that designated us as its chosen, bade us seize the serpent mound and build our dwelling upon it. Here in our mansion of eternal life shall the horned key open the way, breaking the bonds of mortality that we may dwell forever in our promised realm. Ready yourselves, for the day approaches for our final meal. And farewell to the flesh." This is huge. The mention of the Horned Key suggests that unlocking something major is about to happen, possibly related to the Sentinel Artifact or another magical item. The final meal also gives us what seems to be a preview in how Josiah Shem had his flock all end their lives together. Rather than drink the Kool-Aid, they simply eat something. Poison. Mentioning the voice that designated us as its chosen also seemingly confirms our theory that a Dark Ether entity was communicating with Shem and having him do its bidding. This entity made Shem and his followers believe in them as a higher power, believe they were chosen so that they would give up their very flesh for the other realm, the Dark Ether, which sets up the stage perfectly for the bloody grounds of the Mansion Haunted DLC map. So to sum up this ending cutscene, the tomb is a major setup for what's coming next. We now know for sure that Mansion is the next map, and its gruesome backstory, that multiple Sentinel artifacts existed throughout history, and that the S.A.M AI is still lying to our characters. What's still unclear is whether the S.A.M AI is truly on our side, or if there's another layer of deception at play, as we suspected. Will she betray us? Probably. Or will we simply lose to Eddie in this game? We shall see. But with the Mansion as our next destination, we are heading into what could be the biggest revelation yet, as we will finally, potentially meet Richtofen face to face, or at least hear from him from within the Dark Ether. Finally, at long last, it's taken us all of these maps to see Richtofen. He was the main marketing for this game, seeing him in the intro cutscene for Liberty Falls. And a big criticism lots of people have had is there's just not enough Richtofen, and that's led them to not really get into the story. So he could potentially be the main Easter egg person on the next map. Blanchard could be as well. So that is shaping up for a really interesting prospect. But I will be making a whole separate video, like I said, going over the Mansion DLC map deeper with all of the new information we have uncovered. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I'll have a link to my previous videos for more context in the description and loads more storyline videos as well. And stay tuned for that upcoming video and plenty more to come. I'll have so many storyline videos coming up, so make sure you stay tuned. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already for latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.